All hail the power of Jesus' name, let angels prostrate fall. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him Lord of all. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him Lord of all. Let every tongue and every...
Welcome, everybody, to the Tag Your It podcast. I'm Ray.
And I am David Van Bepper.
And this is a double over the phone or Google Meet or whatever episode. So who else do we have on the line?
Hello, I'm Gayla Prewitt.
Yes, we got Gayla Prewitt. Now, this is a little bit of a different subject material than we've dealt with, and I'm feeling very Francis Schaeffer this evening because whenever we think about worldview apologetics, this is the Tag Your It podcast. We've talked about worldview and stuff like that. But whenever we think about worldview apologetics, we're not just talking about just methodologies, not just reading our Bibles, not all that stuff. We're going to talk about art this evening. And so Schaeffer put it together really well that you can tell what people believe by their worldview and how it affects their education, how it affects art, how it affects business and economics and all that kind of stuff. So here's kind of like a little bit of a different take on a really apologetics. That's what you've done in this, Gayla, right? You would you consider yourself an apologist?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I would greatly consider you an apologist, and I think Dave would agree, right?
Yeah, certainly. I think that Schaeffer speaks to the reality that our worldview impacts the way we think about things. And of course, art is a reflection of culture, art, and specifically when we think about film, when we think about novels, when we think about even locally, or I guess I should say closely related to our topic last week, even commercials. Our worldview impacts the way that we create and even why we create. Obviously, we cannot suppress the truth because we are creative beings. We all have some creative element to us. But particularly tonight, we get to focus on the apologetic that is being presented, the worldview that's being presented in two of these novels that Mrs. Prewitt has created. And so with that, Gayla, I used to call you Mrs. Prewitt when you were my professor at Southwest Baptist University. Now I am so fortunate to serve as a trustee at SBU, and I'm grateful for the hard work you do there. Very thankful for the initiative that you take in helping individuals create things that would reflect a Christian worldview. But just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and who you are, because I know you. Adam doesn't know you as well, and no one listening probably has much of a background of who you are.
Yeah, let's get to know you, Gayla.
Okay. Well, I'm a wife and a mother. We have 4 children, ages 30 to 19, and 1 girl, 3 boys. And as David said, I have some experience. I taught in the past at Southwest Baptist University for several years. Right now, I'm just kind of concentrating, though, on more writing and doing freelance work and things like that. My first job out of college was in television news. And at that time, television news to me was a whole different ballgame. It was more about bringing people the facts, not opinions. And you would tell both sides of a story or let people tell both sides of the story so people could have the information and make up their own minds about things. And I got into television news because I really looked at it as a public service because I feel like a free society needs accurate information in order to stay a free society. And without getting too political, I am so it's the way the news has taken a turn to me is it's just very sad. But that was kind of what I got into that. And then we had some health issues with our children. So I started researching some things, and that's what led to writing some of the first novel was Seed Police. And then I've always been concerned with the abortion issue, and my heart was led to write that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, awesome. Well, yeah, she's talking about writing screenplays, and that's what she's doing now. And just, if you were at the God and Government conference right by the door, so we were kind of right by one door. Well, she was by the other side of the door, and that's where I got to first meet her anyway. And I got a hold of Glimmer. I'm going to try to get past the glimmer of the studio light anyway to put that in in the shot there with Glimmer. And this is a sort of like she's taking her screenplay and she's kind of filled it out just a little bit. It's not quite reading it a novel, but it's not reading a screenplay. It makes it quick to read, easier to read. Definitely the imagery still there is kind of what I got from it, from the storyline. But yes, this is Glimmer, and it was a selection of 2020, the International Christian Film and Music Festival. This is out there, and we will definitely have all the links and stuff. We'll tell her to tell us where you can get that information, where you can get the book, and more information about possibly maybe even how to get involved in making sure this becomes a reality, as actually something you can watch so you don't have to read it, because I know we don't always like to read everything in this culture. But anyway, that's what we're talking about tonight. Glimmer. Also, she's mentioned Seed Police, which I've seen a little bit of information on, but let's get this stuff out anyway. So whenever it comes to writing screenplays, you've done like we said, Seed Police and Glimmer. What has prompted you to write? We can talk about both, but since Dave and I have read Glimmer here, what has prompted you to write these?
Well, actually, I still have that desire to share information. That's just kind of in my DNA, which I probably join my family sometimes. I'm always wanting to tell people about something I've researched. And I mentioned a little bit, we had some major health issues with our children. It kind of started first with our daughter, and she had some learning behavior issues. And so I had a friend tell me about some a program called the Feingold program. And it really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. And it was a diet that was developed in the 60s by a pediatric allergist. And so it eliminates like the artificial colors and some preservatives and things like that. And it does miraculous things for children who are sometimes having problems that are sensitive to those things. So that was kind of my first step on the journey of, there's things out there that I didn't realize as a mom. I thought when you went to the store and you buy things, it's safe. It's safe for you to do that. So anyway, that was kind of my journey with Seed Police. And so I started learning more about things. And then two of our boys got horribly sick, and we took them to a specialist and found out that they'd had exposure to arsenic. And I'm like, where's this coming from? Well, that was from our deck and stuff. So anyway, that kind of led me into the screenwriting arena. I thought about doing documentaries, but there's so many good ones out there about a lot of these issues. And so with Glimmer and Seed Police, not that my stories are anywhere near Jesus's parables, but Jesus told stories through parables so people would remember. And I felt like you mentioned earlier, the culture film is really a way to touch the culture. And so these stories came to me, and I felt like maybe they would make an impact where people would want to know more and learn more. Specifically about Glimmer, I just feel like the abortion issue has been so whitewashed, and people in a way have been lied to. And it's hard for me to understand how they don't understand what it is. But I just felt like this story would maybe take it a little step further, where people would think, if you had a child that you'd had for 4 years and you got to know them, would you make that same decision that you would with abortion? And I don't think, and that's really what you're doing. That life in there is that 4-year-old child, just not grown up to that 4-year-old child yet. So that was kind of the impetus for writing Glimmer.
So that causes me to think just a little bit, as we think about the worldview discussion that we've had in the past and how our worldview impacts the mediums that we choose to deliver our message. One of the things that you cover in this is not only a novel and a screenplay, but there is, of course, a position that you're advocating for. What are some of the strengths that you find when it comes to using a medium such as screenplay, novel, film?
I think, I'm hoping anyway, that it touches the heart.
Mm.
And I know there's legislation that's being considered, and I think those are good things. I know there's in Missouri there's a bill to abolish abortion, and you guys have talked about that. And I think those are very important, but I'm hoping that the story will actually touch hearts. And I feel like that's where hopefully change will be permanent. And so if you can really get people to feel and understand what is at stake, then that they will follow through with it longer than just being maybe told they can't do something.
Yeah.
So-
Yes. Oh, go for it, Dave.
Go for it, Adam.
Oh, I was just going to say, so, it's one of those things like education in this, that was a major sort of ending point in the story. And I mean, I don't want to give away because we'll be talking about that a little bit more probably after this. But anyway, just like education, putting it in front. And I think we can call this imaginative apologetics. I think that term has been used in the past. I know just with a fellow apologist on the Missouri Baptist Apologetics Network, Dennis Jackson. I think that's what he definitely talked about in the Show Me Why book, just kind of that imaginative apologetics. So this is what this is. It's a screenplay, hopefully a film. People see this. No, it can't change the heart. But then again, Gayla, as an apologist, as somebody with a gift, we know Christ gives gifts to people, and he expects us to use them. They're gifts for us to use in order to preach the gospel. So she's using her gift, and this should encourage us to also use our gifts but not have gift envy as well. So I just want to say thank you for that. And Dave, there you go.
Yeah. So Gayla, help us out a little bit. We have both the Seed Police and Glimmer. Let's start with the Seed Police and just tell us a little bit about the basic makeup of that narrative. And I know if it's anything like Glimmer, because I apologize that I have not read that one, but I did read Glimmer. Man, it was good. I want to let you kind of get us set up a little bit for the story, but kind of give us the basic premise, a little bit of the plot stuff without revealing too much, because I imagine that there's some similarities between Seed Police and Glimmer in the way that you write. But what would a reader expect as they're jumping in? What would be some good motivations for reading this story?
Well, it's set in the future, and in the story, the government has taken over all food production. And it's illegal for you to own your own seeds. So you cannot grow your own food. And all that is allowed are genetically modified seeds. And the government uses the argument that when they're growing the food, they've produced this food that you won't get sick anymore and all the diseases will be gone. And if you grow your own food, then your food will contaminate the food that they're growing. So that's kind of the basic of it. And so there's a farm family that still has their own seeds, and they're growing seeds underground, and they're sharing it with their neighbors and trying to help their friends. And more and more people are starting to get sick from the other food. And so they risk everything to try to help the other people and show them this is the food that God had made for us originally. This is what we need to do. And so there's several different characters in there. There's a senator trying to, stand up for people's rights just to grow their own food. And there's a doctor trying to help their patients and trying to figure out what this pandemic is all about. And I wrote this like 5 or 6 years, or no longer than that, I guess. But so I didn't know that we're going to have a pandemic. But and then there's a minister who's trying to help the farmers, and they get together, and the senator. And so it all kind of comes together at the end. And I guess my motivation for that too was kind of what I was talking about earlier. And it still goes to Glimmer, how I have a verse that really, to me, sums up Glimmer. And it's, make sure I get it correctly. It's Psalm 139:16. And your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. And I feel like I'm for life. I'm for children. I'm for babies before they're born. I'm for older people. And if you believe, as I believe, that some of the alterations that we're doing to our food is contributing to some of the health problems we're having, I feel like that's derailing who God originally our plan for us. And I know when I had sick children, there was nothing else that I could concentrate on but that. I couldn't go out and be salt and light. I had to do this. And I feel like, it just, the food is important for the babies once they get out and they're here and they're growing. And so once I had experienced the things that I had experienced with my children, I really wanted other people to at least be able to research and be aware and find out for themselves and ask questions. So that's probably the main purpose of that, was just to kind of put it in a story and for people to think about it and research for themselves.
Yeah. And so
Yeah, and
I was going to say, what kind of response did you get out of Seed Police? I know that's even in the Christian world, I've been a part of this sort of, I would say, debate. It wasn't really like a heated debate between brothers and sisters. We actually talked about it very civilly and stuff like that. But what was the response to something like that? Because I know it was very inflammatory. We have shifted because of the pandemic and whatnot now to some other issues. But there was, I would say, between 2009 and 2009 to at least 2017, we were talking about food and where it was coming from. Like whenever Netflix and all those things started coming out, those are the documentaries everybody was interested in, was food. And so you put this out like right in the middle of that. What kind of response did you get? Like who was responding? How kind of, what was that?
It seems like there's two camps, especially in the world of Christians. Like some people are really interested in that and want to research it more. And then a lot of Christians, I think they feel like anything you talk about food or environment, that you're someone who is on the environmental end. Yeah. And so that's not what this is about. This is talking about, in my opinion, are the things that God made and how we're actually altering the things and creating our own world. And I even have on I think it's the back, in the beginning it was good, then man said I can make it better. And so that's kind of the focus of the book. And the main characters, the farmers, they're Christians, and they talk about how God provided for us. And I'm not talking about hybridizing and things like that. Yeah. This actually, as everyone surely knows by now, it's actually taking the genes and changing things and putting species together that, would never be together, like viruses and bacteria and even fish sometimes into plants. And what's kind of scary, and I haven't done a lot of research on it lately, but kind of while this is going on, that we've had going on, there's a bigger push even to not just genetically modify our food, but bacterias and fungus. And the problem with a lot of this, from my research anyway, that I understand, obviously I'm not a scientist, so I just read what people I trust, is that once you put this out in the world, you cannot retract it. Yeah. And so it is taking people's choices away, because people who want food that's not that way, the genetically modified food contaminates it, and there's getting to be less and less true heirloom seeds and things like that. So yeah, and I like that because we can relate that to something that, even though we have the shift again, like I said, it seemed like food and organics and all that kind of was the talk of the green side. Like you said, Christians kind of like, well, wait a second. Now you're talking like one of those green folks, and so like that kind of translates into now that we're talking about vaccines. So I mean, like we can really take the same principles and apply it to, like, that's how you've got a good hermeneutic, is if you can actually take principles and they move across, like, universal particulars, like you have the universals and particulars, and we can do that. And so when we think about the distinction you made between hybridization and like actually getting into the genes, so not just grafting something on, or letting two types of flowers grow together and then through bees and all that kind of stuff, that's different. The genetic, like that is genetic. Like this is the equivocation that can happen. That is modified. Right. And, but it's not going in there and pulling out little pieces of DNA and actually, it's different. We are doing a lot of things, and it's the same thing that we're doing with the mRNA vaccines and stuff too. That can translate. But I'm glad that you brought that distinction, and it's a distinction that must be thought about in that. So,
well, there's a key issue within the Seed Police, it sounds like, and that is, of course, a care for humanity and the moral conviction that Christians have to care for others.
Yeah.
And that's something that we see kind of cross over when it comes to Glimmer. So you've given us a little bit of what caused you to write Seed Police, the position that it's advocating for, even kind of how some of that is advocated for. Tell us a little bit about Glimmer. We want everyone who's listening and watching to purchase a copy of it. If you haven't noticed, in the comments section, I have given you links to actually the website for Seed Police, and then likewise the Amazon page there for Glimmer. But tell me a little bit about Glimmer and kind of what underlies that narrative and what readers would expect from that.
Well, I kind of compared it to, and I don't know when I do this, people kind of give me a strange look, but it's kind of like It's a Wonderful Life meets The Christmas Carol. And so you don't really know exactly what's going on in the story. And Margot is the main character. And so it starts out that Margot's being taken away. And then you kind of see her life kind of flash back to the time when she had a daughter and the interaction with her and her child. And then in the middle, we kind of don't know what's going on because it's like she never had a child and all the people around her say she never had a child. And she ends up they kind of put her a while in a hospital. And so there's flashbacks and you see her daughter Zoe and it's just hard. You don't know what's going on. You don't know if Margot imagined everything or if the people around her are kind of doing something to her. And so, I mean, obviously it comes out at the end and you know what happened. So, but I think it's affirming for, I hope, for life and for even possibly adoption. And I mean, there's even some issues, I think, in there too about the homelessness. And so I'm just hoping it will, I feel like abortion has been, and really, I don't even know that the word abortion is in the book. So I'm thinking it's not.
No, I do not remember because that's what I was sort of reading it for. That's how I was kind of understanding getting into it and then going like, okay, this is a little bit more taken aback and then letting the reader kind of, again, you've produced a screenplay that is not a screenplay. And so, but it's treated like in your mind, you still get that imagery as you're trying to be like, okay, this is a screenplay. I need to project this thing and see how this is working out. Cause like you said, like I got thrown around, like I'm over here. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what the heck just happened? And then, I joined in with that whole, like, okay, so are the people like, is this a conspiracy? So that you get into the conspiracy theory. Is this a conspiracy of people saying, hey, no, you're everything you believe to be true isn't true. And then she's freaking out. So you can kind of feel for that sort of crowd of people that might, feel like there's a conspiracy against them. But then, you're seeing multiple sides of a story in the whole story of what's going on with all the different flashbacks. So definitely whenever Dave told me it's very Twilight Zone, I was like, yep. I was like, yep, there it is. Cause I'm getting thrown around all over the place, but then at the very end, you're kind of like you said, oh, there it is. Okay. But yeah, it wasn't about abortion, but you can definitely, or at least explicitly, but definitely it leads the reader in a bunch of different directions to kind of see what's going on. And then you do hit it at the very end, just especially with the education factor of like, why did you write it? And I like that you brought in that, if, being able to show people, that's what the story is. It's kind of like the story is not just going in to get an ultrasound done, but like even prior to that, read something like this. Prior to even getting pregnant, reading something like this so that, because this is kind of like a story instead of having being in the situation. It's kind of like knowing all the variables in the decision to either give life or take life.
Well, and one of the things that I greatly appreciate, Gayla, about the novel Glimmer specifically is when you use narrative in such a compelling way to make your argument, it puts down so many pieces of resistance that someone might have. If I'm reading a book or a novel or watching a film, so many of my guards are put down, right? And I often step back and say, well, what worldview is being advocated by this commercial, by this book, by this film, right? If I go and I jump into any film or even a documentary that I'm watching, I'm going to step back as a Christian and begin to assess the worldview. There's one amazing thing that I note about apologetics done this way, and I like that term we're using it, imaginary apologetics, right? What you do in this novel is you get me thinking through a lens that I'm thinking through already about life. But those who haven't put that forward, who have not actualized, they're living their worldview, but they haven't done so in an educated way. This allows them to put down their guards, and then they have to ask themselves some critical questions that you just really pinpoint so well in this. And then that causes me to think a little bit about some of the responses that you've had to this. I mean, obviously, I enjoyed it. I did write a little review on my church's website, and I shared that a little while ago. And I'm excited about this. But how have other people responded to this? What are people saying that you've talked to? I mean, obviously, as one of your former students, I'm telling you, I really enjoyed it. But even if I wasn't, I would. But maybe there's some people that are maybe not in your realm of influence that have already grabbed the book. What are they saying? And how are you being received among those kind of people with this?
Well, I haven't had it out a lot yet, but what I have has been the same thing. I wanted it to be a thriller because I did, like you said, I think it kind of puts people's guard down, and it's not so obvious, maybe the story, but to feel it more and to actually be drawn in. And so I just feel like the other side, there's so much, I don't know if it's a better word, but propaganda around abortion. And I think even women have been lied to. I know a lot of women, or not a lot, but I have spoken with women who have had abortions, and had they known when they were younger, had they known what they know now, they wouldn't have made those choices. And so that's what I'm hoping, like you said, that people that aren't to that point, and they would see this life and before they even get in that situation. And so that's kind of the goal of that, is for people to put their guards down and just watch a story, but then also get the message at the same time.
So I think it's a compelling novel. I'm looking forward to reading Seed Police. Besides getting the amazing blessing of getting to pastor, and part of my pastoring is, of course, getting to be a part of the podcast and advocate for a Christian worldview. I'm so fortunate to have a church that lets me do that, and I mean that incredibly. They just give me a really awesome piece of support and let me do the podcast, and making time to do that. They see that as part of my ministry, so I'm grateful for that. I'm also getting to teach, and I'm also a doctoral student. So there's a few things on my plate, and so I haven't got to pick up Seed Police yet. But when I think about the way that you wrote and the story that you tell, kind of tell me what people can do to help support that, because obviously you want it to become a film. What are the steps that you're taking, and kind of tell us a little bit about what's happening next.
Okay, I'm really excited right now. Glimmer, we're focusing on Glimmer, and I've partnered with Studio 2060 in Springfield, Missouri. Mike and Lily and Madison Strain, and Mike has been in the film industry a long time. There's a lot more film community than I realized in the Springfield area. And so, but we are right now planning and hoping in early March to film a proof of concept trailer. Cool. And it'll probably be 1 or 2 minutes long. And so that's what we're fundraising for right now. We're hoping to be able to raise $1,500. We're almost halfway there. So, and I have a GoFundMe campaign that I have a website, GaylaPrewitt.com. And on there's a link to film and novel projects. And if somebody wants to learn more about it, they can click on that. And a link to the fundraiser is there. I also have your review on there, David.
Hey.
And Joshua Jenkins wrote a nice review of it as well.
Jenkins, and I think he is watching tonight. So,
and I'm very excited. A friend of Joshua's just released an album, and we're hoping. I've contacted him, and he gave me permission to use one of his songs for the trailer, and I think it'll be perfect with it. So, but that's one of the things we're doing right now. Is we have that. I'm organizing right now a t-shirt fundraiser too, but I don't have that quite together. We have a company called Creator Designs. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's in Springfield also.
Oh yes, yeah, it's a very well-known Springfield company.
And they have a program called Easy Teasy. And so my son, who's a graphic design major, designed a t-shirt for me, and it's Every Life Has a Story, and then it just has that Psalm 139:16. So I thought that's something that people would want to wear anyway. So it doesn't have glimmer or anything like that on there, just that. So that's one of the things. I also had talked to a producer who made a documentary, Leaders for Life, Frank Panico, and it has Kevin and Sam Sorbo in it. And if anybody wants to host that, he's given me permission to use that as a fundraiser. And it is a little political, so I don't know. And then the biggest thing, just for the film, I'm looking for a fiscal sponsorship. And what that is would be to a nonprofit organization. And I haven't really approached anyone too much yet. So, but a nonprofit organization, they sponsor someone, and it's kind of a grantee-grantor relationship. So if anybody might want to talk about that more, that would be great too.
All right. Well, yeah, that's a lot of good places. So guys, we will definitely, I know that in the comments, Dave has been throwing up some links here and there and stuff like that, but we'll make sure that they are provided in the podcast details, the YouTube details. And then what we'll do is actually put a little article in our articles on the tagyouritministries.org site about all these little things that you can go to. So the links will be everywhere if you want to support this project of, the teaser, like she's saying, which hopefully leads to an actual film, which then if we can get in contact with, like, say, Marcus Pittman. I don't know if you know who Marcus Pittman is, but he's hung out with the Apologia guys. And he recently moved to Moscow, Idaho, to hang out with, Douglas Wilson all the time. But he is actually starting or he's working on, as you're working on anyway, a new streaming service called Lore, which is, he is definitely calling for strong biblical creators to produce original content and compete with all the major guys out there. So this wouldn't be just your normal mamby-pamby TBN Hallmark style kind of stuff. Like, he's looking for real content.
Wow.
And because he says Christian movies suck. So, and I would have to agree with a lot of it. So, but he's got this vision of producing like really good, solid, but real type of content, originally and all that stuff, to kind of, again, like, instead of trying to utilize platforms, like, Christians need to be putting out their dominion, and they need to be subduing things. And so in art, as you are, and whoever else has the gift of creativity, be it poems, be it writing, technical writing, whatever, the arts, we need to be subduing for the sake and, for Christendom, for Christ, and producing it, and just making sure, again, nobody already has an excuse, but we need to make sure to get the gospel out there, because that's our duty. And so, hopefully something like that ends up like this. So you never know. Maybe you can talk to Josh Jenkins, and maybe we can figure out to rally behind you to talk to Marcus Pittman and see what we can do about that.
So I want to make sure I put a plug out there real quick. So go to GaylaPrewitt.com. That's one way that you can support this. That'll give you the link to the crowdfunding elements that we've talked about. I think that this is certainly something worth getting behind. Completely, we're grateful to use our means, and I would say, I'm going to try to set up an event for Gayla to come and speak, either to our women's group or at our church sometime on a Sunday night, and just talk a little bit about Christians in art and then what she's produced. I think that that's a discussion that's often neglected, and it's good that we can jump into this, because there is an apologetic element to this. There is, of course, proclaiming what what God is sovereign over, and that is everything in his creation, the worldview that should undergird and frame what we create. And I think that you've done an amazing job. So please, listeners, go to GaylaPrewitt.com. We would encourage you to purchase a copy of this fine book, Glimmer. I can say that because I've read it. I imagine that Seed Police is just as good. So purchase yourself a copy of that as well. Give it to someone as a gift, even. So, yeah, this is really good stuff, Gayla. We are excited, and we are certainly wanting to do everything we can to support you. So, as we've kind of covered this topic, do you have any ideas for maybe some other novels or screenplays that you maybe haven't put to work just yet?
Well, actually, I have 2 other screenplays.
All right.
I have a sequel to Seed Police, which is called Verified. And so that's kind of my next one. I think I'm going to go ahead and put in a short novel. And then I have another one called Sincerely Charles. And it's more personal. It's based kind of on my grandparents. And to me, it's more of a love story of loving even when tragedy happens, and the realization, even if your life here isn't what you want it to be, that we all have a heavenly home. And so, but it's got some nights and things like that in it. And so it's a very tragic story. So I tried a parallel story in it. If you look at this life, it was a tragic story, but because we have a heavenly home, it's not.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Oh, no. It's everything's in the light of eternity. So it's like the now and not yet, like the promise that death is no more. It really isn't anymore.
Right.
It's the last enemy swallowed, but I can go into my death going, what's this? There's no more sting. So I'm glad that you're doing that. That's a wonderful idea, because that's something even at our church and in our community groups that we're doing at Redeemer, is trying to just keep our eyes on eternity. So I'm glad you're writing something like that. So when that comes out, I want it, and I want to see what you do with that. Like just the continuum of eternity and temporalness. I love that. So that definitely speaks to my, I like keeping my brain there. So wonderful.
Thank you.
So, one little piece, and I'm just going to put it out there. I know that we're still on the podcast, but even if we weren't recording, I would still say this too. Be sure, let the Missouri Baptist Pathway know a little bit about these things as well, because I want to encourage you, because they do a great job on writing things like this and writing stories about this. And so I don't know that you've contacted them, but Ben Hawkinson, one of the editors, is a good friend of the program, and he tunes in every once in a while, and we've had him on. And of course, Don Hinkle is also, that's the Missouri Baptist Pathway. I would just encourage you to reach out to them. So, yeah, well, Gayla, I really appreciate you coming on. Now, we have this funny way that we end each program, and so we'll have to coach you on it. But,
all right, so we've got 3 people. It's 3 words. You agree with it, Soli Deo Gloria, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll say Soli, Dave says Deo, you say Gloria, and then we end the show.
Okay.
Sound wonderful? All righty. Well, again, yeah. I always mess it up. Anyway, but we'll get it to it this time. But guys, thank you so much. In livecast land, this is a 2 for Monday anyway, and this is the first program with Gayla Prewitt talking about Seed Police and Glimmer. And with that said, this is the Tag Your Podcast. I'm Ray.
And I'm Dave.
And
Gayla.
And Soli
Deo.
Gloria.